What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was banished and returned with a god army? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Konohagakure no Sato, home of the greatest Hokage to ever live. 13 years had passed and Konoha had prospered very well. Everyone in the village were busy minding their own business. The children were playing, the women gossiped and the men laughed and boasted. It was a happy picture and a good way of life. How boring, a beautiful blonde said. She sat on top of the Sandame's head with a bottle of sake. She held her cup to her lips and took a gulp of it. She gave a big sigh and poured herself another cup. She watched over the village that she'd given her life to protect, but she couldn't help but scorn these people. Why did she scorn them? It was because of that decision that she'd been forced to make over 13 years ago. She wished that she could have done more to stop the Council of Elders from making that decision. She blamed everyone for it with the exception of Haruka and Jiraiya. She wanted to send Jiraiya to keep tabs on him, but the council denied her. No one ever mentioned her little brother's name in a negative since the end result would be quite painful. She ignored summons by the elders, she did not greet the clan leaders, and she was quite harsh to certain ninjas. There were some who were calling for her to step down from the Hokage position. She actually was ready to give it up until she was convinced otherwise. She took another gulp of her sake. That's when she felt someone arrive. She placed the cup down. "What do you want?" she asked without turning to face the Anbu member. "Hokage-sama, Jiraiya-sama has called an emergency meeting and requires your presence," he said. That surprised her. Jiraiya didn't respect the council members as much as she did. If he was willing to speak to them, then it must be important. "Fine, I'll be there shortly," she said. The Anbu member bowed and left. She stood up and grabbed the cage hat that was lying beside her. "Well sensei, let's see what your perverted student has to say." Placing her sensei's hat on her head, Tsunade, the Godiami Hokage, disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Tsunade entered the meeting chambers. There sat Mitokado Homura, Utatane Kaharu and Danzo. Jiraiya was leaning against the wall and took a glance at Tsunade and gave a smirk. She returned it and sat at the head of the table where her temporary assistant, Haruno Sakura, stood. Leave it to a pregnant Shizune to pick someone that she really didn't like. "Okay Jiraiya, what is so important that it had to cut into my workload?" Tsunade asked. "You were working? The gods themselves must be laughing," he joked. "Whatever, you pervert. Now, why did you call us here?" she asked again. "I came to tell you that war is upon us and we are greatly outmatched." That got everyone's attention. "Explain," she ordered. "One of my spies in Ta no Kuni sent me a message. Orochimaru has allied himself with Iwa, Aim and Kumo. They are gathering their armies and are planning a strike against Konoha." Tsunade bit her fingers in frustration. "This is not good. Kumo has more ninja than we do, not to mention that Iwa has been looking for a reason to attack us for years." Tsunade gave a serious look toward Jiraiya. "Is there anything else we must concern ourselves with?" "There is the possibility that we also have Kirigakure to deal with as well," Jiraiya answered. "The Sandaime Mizukage and the Raikage are in league together since the Mizukage has been supplying the Raikage's slave operation for some time. They could join in the fight. It is even said that a diplomatic convoy are on their way there even as we speak. The ninjas of Kiri are of no concern to us," Danzo stated. "They are the weakest of the great ninja nations. They do not even have the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu anymore. Give the word and we will crush this incest once and for all." "No," Tsunade snapped. "Despite the fact that they have been plagued with civil war, their army can easily outmatch us. What we need to do is to see if Kirigakure no Sato will become a threat to us." She turned to her temporary assistant. "Send for Kurenai immediately. Also send out word to every ninja. Tell them it is in sulfur monosulfide class emergency meeting that will be held in 30 minutes. Go now." "Hi, Hokage-sama." She disappeared in a puff of smoke. Tsunade sighed and slumped in her seat. "I really need a drink," she muttered. Deep within Ta no Kuni, 4 men stood around a table, discussing plans. Each man was strong in their own way and each had very high ambitions. "So with this plan we will finally destroy Konohagakure no Sato. I can hardly wait for the day," the man said. He had on cage robes and his hat which had the kanji of earth on it. This man was Maguna Barugu, the Rokudame Tsuchikage. Barugu was a former soldier that took part in the Iwagakure-Konohagakure War. He led troops against Konoha's ninjas, but he and his entire army was wiped out by Konoha no Kiroi Senku. It was a most humiliating loss and a huge blow to his pride as a shinobi and leader. He wanted another shot at the man but was denied when he was surrendered. His blood boiled and he deserted Iwagakure soon after. Living as a missing nin, he created a small army. He took this army back to Iwagakure no Sato. Together, they were able to turn more villagers and eventually, killed the Godem Tsuchikage. He was appointed the new kage without any opposition. He heard of how Otogakure almost dealt a killing blow to Konoha and made a pact with him. He would like nothing more than to see the village that the Yondaime Hokage tried so hard to protect burn in flames. Our combined forces will obliterate Konoha. They have no chance of survival. The man to Barugu's right was also a kage. He was the Yondaime Reikage, Gashira Ikazuki. Since Kumogakure no Sato has been founded, the Gashira clan has always been in power. Every kage was from that clan. If there was anyone who threatened their hold of that power, they were dealt with quietly but brutally. Ikazuki was a very crafty ninja. He would rather plot or use devious schemes and strategies than fight head-on. It was he who suggested the plot to kidnap the Hyuga heir. His brother, who was next in line to be Reikage, fouled up and got killed. He wasn't sad though, since it made him next in line for the title. He knew that this would be another chance at obtaining the Byakugan. He had not been fooled by Konoha's little switch and he would make them pay for it. You may be satisfied with this, but I'm not pleased, the leader of the AIM ninjas said. He was not given the title of kage since Omegakure no Sato was ruled by a daimyo. So he sent his best man as a representative. This man was Oboro. Oboro saw this as a way to redeem himself for his past. First it was that he and his genin team were defeated by a bunch of brats. Next, those same brats defeated them again. Then, his teammates were killed against Konoha's hunter nins. Lastly, he was almost killed by a medic nin that he attempted to kill. To him, the sooner that Konoha was gone, the better his life would get. What is it now, you little bug? Barugu asked. Oboro had to catch himself before he attacked the Tsuchikage. Why are we, the AIM, dealing with Suna? He demanded. From what the scouts say, the Godem Kage and his brother, Puppet Master Konkuro, are part of the convoy. You expect us to take on them? Gaara will crush us in a matter of seconds. Did you not listen? Said Ikazuki. You're not going into a full scrimmage with the Suna nins. You're to just give quick ambushes and keep doing that before they reach Konoha. What are you afraid of? Barugu asked conceitedly. Gaara does not have his demon anymore. He still has control of the sand and that still makes him a dangerous person. I won't have our ninjas go into a battle where we will be killed. Said Oboro. Calm yourself, Oboro, a slithering voice said. I assure you that none of your ninja will be sent into a needless fight. I've created this plan and it will not fail. Everyone turned to the Shodem Otokage, Orochimaru. He had not changed in appearances or ambitions. The only thing that changed would be that he had switched bodies 3 weeks ago. It was the reason for him being in bandages. Despite being in a weakened sat, he still was a dangerous enemy. I am still unsure, he said. Are all you AIM nins so weak? Barugu said. What did you say? Oboro demanded while he decided which jutsu he'd to kill the man. Barugu just smirked at the predictable young man. He was in the midst of beginning a jutsu himself when they were stopped by Orochimaru. Enough, Orochimaru ordered strictly. You two could settle your differences after we have destroyed Konoha. The two stopped their attack but glared at each other while Orochimaru turned to the two cages. Now, let us continue. The door to Tsunade's office was knocked and a voice asked for permission to enter. She was a good-looking woman with red eyes and black hair. She wore a white dress which at her thighs with one red sleeve. Her hands were bandaged and her headband was tied around her forehead. Tsunade looked up from her desk to address the ninja. Yuichi Kurenai bowed to her cage and awaited her instructions. Kurenai, Tsunade began. I will make this as brief as possible. We are now at war with Omegakure, Otogakure, Iwagakure and Kumogakure, and it might be a possibility that we may be at war with Kirigakure. As we speak, a diplomatic courier is on its way to Mizu no Kuni. Tsunade tossed her a scroll. That has the mission briefing on it. This is to be handled as an S-rank mission. You have 1 week to do the mission. Do you have any questions? I do have a request. I would like to have my former team with me. They have skills which will make the mission much faster. Kurenai said. So be it, the older woman said, nodding. Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba and Aburame Shino are under your command. This mission is to be carried out immediately. Understood, Kurenai said and disappeared from Tsunade's view. He walked through the forest at a slow pace. He was looking for something new to add to his collection. 13 years had done much for him. Now a Junin, he was a vice-captain of one of the Hunter Nin squads. His skills were second to none when it came to finding missing nins with his clan's bloodline. He placed his hand on a tree branch and concentrated. Mushi Yos no Jutsu. He called out. A chakra web appeared and so did a huge amount of bugs. He had seen some of these before and was not really interested in them. I still see that you still enjoy this hobby. A voice said. He turned to see his former teacher standing on a branch. It is good to see you again, Kurenai Shisho. I'm sorry that I have not visited you recently. He said. I keep telling you that you do not have to refer to me like that. You are a Junin now, so we are at equal standing. Old habits are hard to break, Shisho, he said. What is it that you require of me? I need you for a mission. I have already cleared you with your captain. You have an hour to get your things and meet me at the west gate. Kurenai said. Understood, he said. Kurenai left him alone with his bugs. He then noticed a bug that he had never seen. Calling to the bug, he held at the tip of his finger and observed it. You will make a nice addition. With that said, Aburame Shino disappeared. Yahoo! Shouted a little girl. She was riding on top of a big white dog. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She had 2 red marks on each side of her cheek. She was wearing a tank top and black bottoms. She was riding the dog like she in a rodeo when she saw a black-haired lady appear. She knew her from the picture that her father kept on the table. Hi Kurenai-san, she said. Hello Hanryu-chan, is your dad home? Kurenai asked. Yes. She turned to the door and took a deep breath. Daddy, she shouted. In seconds, a man came out. He was wearing a black shirt and gray pants. He had a mask on top of his head which the Anbu used. He looked to see his old teacher standing next to his daughter. Hey Kurenai, what's going on? He asked. I have a mission that requires your skills. It's a S-rank mission. She said. How long do I have? 1 hour at the west gate. Kurenai said and disappeared. He walked up to his daughter and lifted her up of the dog. She pouted and he laughed. Sorry honey. Akamaru and I have a mission to do. He said. All right, you're going to kick butt, right? Hanryu asked. Of course. I'm Inuzuka Kiba, one of Konoha's Anbu. I'm going to kick so much. He was cut short by a smack across his head. He turned to see his wife. How many times must I tell you about your language? She growled. Sorry dear, he said. Hanryu giggled. Her father may have the big bad dog when it came to fighting, but he was a whipped puppy when it came to his wife. He dodged the first strike and countered. She ducked and struck out to his leg. He dodged and tried to close one of her chakra points, but she spun away and tried to do the same to him. He dodged again. It was just like their fight at the Chunin exam. The only difference was there was no rage involved. Besides, it would be frowned upon if he killed his wife. The two backed away from each other, breathing heavily. They both then turned to the clapping sound. Kurenai-sensei, the woman said. He just bowed. Hello, Hinata-chan, Neji Dono. Kurenai called. What brings you here Kurenai-sama? Neji asked. I have a mission that requires the Byakugan. Since I'm gathering my old team, I'm going to need your Byakugan, Hinata. Yes sensei. I will be ready within the hour. Hinata said. Good. Kurenai disappeared and left. Hinata turned to Neji. I must prepare. I'm sorry to cut our time short, she said with a small smile. Neji walked up and kissed her forehead. They left it at that and she left to get prepared. The former Team 8 stood at the entrance at the west gate. They were carrying light and wearing dark clothes. Kurenai faced her former Genin team. Okay, here is the mission. We are to enter Mizu no Kuni undetected and spy on the Mizukage. She said. May I inquire why? Shino asked. If you have not heard, Kurenai said. Otogakure has allied with Kumogakure, Iwagakure, and Omegakure. They have declared war on us. It is possible that Kirigakure would likely join the war. We are to get in, gather information, and get out. What is our timeline? Asked Hinata. We have 1 week, so we will not be stopping until we reach the docks. So what are we waiting for? Kiba asked. Kurenai nodded and signaled them to move out. The reunited Team 8 disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Orochimaru and Ikazuki walked side by side as the meeting ended. The two were silent until Orochimaru spoke up. Are you certain about Kiri joining us? Do not worry, Orochimaru. The Sandaime only cares about his wealth. A chance to obtain Konoha's treasures will bring him running. Even without the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nanan and Shu, their army is vast and strong. Ikazuki explained. Good, I wish for nothing to go wrong. This time I will destroy Konohagakure no Sato. Just as long as I get a Hyuga. Of course you will, Orochimaru said. The Raikage bowed and turned the other way. Orochimaru waited until he was out of sight before someone came out of the shadows. He didn't acknowledge his presence until he felt such about Ikazuki not being there. Satisfied, he turned to the person who appeared through the shadows. A crafty person, isn't he, Kabuto? The glasses-wearing, right-hand man of Orochimaru just smirked. He is indeed. Shall I keep an eye on him? He asked. No, we will deal with him when the time comes. For now, we need him. How goes the plan? It is just as you planned. Gaara's forces have been ambushed. Konoha has sent a platoon to help. It was quite ingenious of you to let slip the information of our invasion. It was nothing. I knew that my old comrade had a spy here. It was unfortunate that we had to wipe out the rest of the Fuma clan, but it had to be done. Is there anything else? Yes. Uehi Kurenai, along with Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino, and Hyuga Hinata has left Konohagakure. It seems that they are aware of the Raikage's dealings with the Mizukage. Kabuto said. This can be a problem, Orochimaru mused. But it can also be a blessing. If they were caught, not only would Kirigakure no Sato join our cause, but they eliminate 3 of our enemies and we would have the Byakugan. Let's see how this plays out. Continue with the plan, Orochimaru ordered. Kabuto nodded and disappeared. Orochimaru chuckled to himself. He couldn't wait until he saw Konoha in flames. Hinata looked out over the water. They had made good time, arriving at the docks by nightfall. They brought their tickets the next day. This would be the first time that she would be in Mizu no Kuni. Her father had serious issues about it because people in Kiri did not like people with Kekkei Genkai, but her village was at war and his concerns were put aside. She watched over the water and found it quite peaceful. She seemed to be a home near water. Suddenly, the fog began to get thicker. Her eyes were under a genjutsu, so she would be protected from attacks, so it did show her use of the Byakugan. She looked around but found it difficult since the fog was so thick. She managed to get back to her team when the fog lifted and revealed 5 Kiri ninjas on the boat. Everyone was a bit tense until a woman spoke. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, she said loudly. My name is Tamayo Kanbi Junin and Royal Guard of Kirigakure. Sorry for interrupting, but before you reach the harbor, we will like to check your papers. So, if you will please, get into 4 lines and have your papers out. The sooner this is done, the quicker you can return to your ride. She said. The passengers complied and everyone got into a line. The ninjas checked everyone's papers. The ninjas looked over every passport carefully. They were checking to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. When it came her turn, the Kiri ninja was not only checking out Hinata's passport, but also Hinata. She found this very irritating. She had filled out very well and had a quite few admirers back in Konoha. Though that came to an end when she married Neji and no one was crazy enough to gawk at his wife. The man was clearly taking more time than was needed to check the passport in his eagerness of eyeing Hinata. But it came to an abrupt halt when he felt a killer intent behind him. He gulped and handed back her papers. Sorry about the delay. Your papers are in order, he said too quickly. Hinata walked away from the man and ran into Kanbi. I'm sorry about my comrade. He's been like that ever since that book started being sold. We've been getting a lot more perverts. Kanbi said. It's all right. So what is with the security? Is it because of the civil war? She asked. You must mean the Bloodline Massacre. That ended about 5 years ago when the Yondaime took over. She explained. A Yondaime Mizukage? Well, we have hidden ourselves away from the world, so I'm not surprised you don't know, Kanbi said, quite clearly very proud. It happened about 9 years ago. A 16-year-old boy and 2 former members of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nanan and Shu overthrew that tyrant of a Sandaime. When it was over, he stayed with us and helped correct some of our problems. It took him 4 years, but he stabilized our economy, increased our territory, and made a working government. After that, the people elected him as our Kage. Kanbi said. Wow, he must be a great leader. Hinata said, quite impressed. Yeah, and he's really powerful. Before he became a Kage, he was known as the Shinku Senku. Hinata almost went wide-eyed, but that may have blown her cover. She knew of the Shinku Senku. He was a growing legend in the ninja world. There were various rumors that surrounded him. For one, he was incredibly fast. He knew quite a few jutsu from each land. He had created a vast number of jutsu that were powerful. There were others, but they could never confirm it. If he was now in charge and Kumo got him on their side, it could spell destruction for Konoha. Her thoughts were interrupted when a Chunin was talking to Kanbi. She nodded and turned back to Hinata. Well, we must be going now. Just to let you know, you will be searched at the harbor as well, but with the stamp on your passport, you won't have too much trouble. Thank you, Hinata said, nodding her head. You're welcome. Enjoy your stay, Kanbi said, smiling knowingly. She called out to her men and they disappeared in the mist. Hinata decided to find her team. They needed to know what they would be facing. He sat at his desk with a bored expression. He thought that the life of a Kage would be much more exciting than this. He wondered if the old man actually enjoyed doing work like this. He didn't seem to complain about it and he did not lose his sanity. He yawned for the 3rd time today. He turned his chair around lazily. He stood up and went out to the balcony to look out over the place that he sworn to protect. It had been 5 years since taking the position of Mizukage. He really didn't want the job since his dreams of being a Kage died 12 years ago, but the people here wanted him as their leader. They appreciated him and saw him as a hero to their people. They didn't even care that he was the container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He felt happy and accepted the position of Kage, becoming the Yondaime. He suddenly felt the presence of someone and turned to face the person. It was a man of middle age with long, gray hair and brown eyes. The man wore brown baggy pants and a white GI top. Under the GI was a chain mail shirt and over the GI was a blue vest. His shins, hands, and forearms were taped. The sword on his back was large and wide. The handle was worn from countless battles. Are you busy, Mizukage-sama? He asked. Not really, the Mizukage admitted. How many times must I tell you to call me by my name? That Mizukage-sama stuff makes me sound old. I'm only 25. It would be disrespectful, the man said, smiling. Besides, I'm old, yet someone who is used to order and manners. That's what makes you old, Genji. The young man joked. Genji just chuckled at the young Mizukage. He remembered his defeat at the hands of this young man. Though he hated the Sandame, Sanzuba, Genji was a man of loyalty. When they met, this young man, then only a teenager, tried to reason with him. Though they were sound reasons, he was a man of loyalty. Their fight was fierce, but in the end he was defeated. He had wanted him to kill him. The boy refused and took him to be healed. He was in the hospital when he got the word of the Sandame's defeat. He watched as this man went to work in order to help Kiri. He was surprised at the support that he was getting from the people. When they asked him to become Mizukage, he was one of the people that supported that idea. He agreed and Genji gave his loyalty to him. There is something I need to tell you, he said. Oh? It seems that we have visitors, he said, frowning. A diplomatic courier has arrived from Kumogakure no Sato. The Mizukage wasn't too surprised by that. He knew about the upcoming siege that they were planning with Otogakure, Iwagakure and Omegakure against Konohagakure and Sanagakure. It was something that had been on his mind for a while. Genji knew that his Mizukage's mind was on his hometown. Should I send them away? He asked. No, he said with a sudden foxy grin. They traveled a great way to get here. It would be rude not to entertain them. When they got past customs and into the village, they were expecting to see a village in strife and poverty. They were not expecting this. It was full of life in this village. Vendors were selling their products, women were laughing and walking around, the kids were playing in the streets and the men were just sitting back. This was not the Kirigakure that has been looked down on for years. When Hinata relayed the information that she received from the harbor patrol to her team, they were a bit skeptical. Now they were starting to believe her. They were amazed at the new village, but they had no time to view the sights. Kurenai's first order of business was to get a base of operations. The four went looking for a hotel. On their way, Kiba bumped into someone. My apologizes, he said. The person was a woman. She wore a full ninja garment that was a dark purple. She wore a net shirt under the outfit. Her forearms were taped and she had a sword strapped to her back. It was a short blade that looked like it was suited for one-handed sword fighters. Her black hair was tied in a high ponytail and her eyes were blue. She gave Kiba a smile. It was no problem. Accidents happen, she said. He bowed and walked away. The woman noticed something about the group. She swore that she had seen one of them somewhere before. She shrugged it off and continued on her way. She walked with a seductive sway with her hips. Her emerald eyes and blonde hair sway in mischief. She wore a black battle kimono that was slightly altered. It was altered in a way that it very revealing. Yet to underestimate her would be a great disadvantage. She was carrying a wicked-looking scythe that had a red-colored blade on it. It was a family heirloom of hers that has been passed from warrior to warrior. It was because of this weapon that she was called the Shojuhi Kiho. As she turned the corner, she saw her fellow teammate. His name was Sentaro Ishigochi. He had short blonde hair and dark gray eyes. He wore something similar to what the Akatsuki were said to wear, but it had no red clouds on it. It was entirely plain black, with the exception of some words in kanji. It meant, "The way of the warrior is full of peril." She found it quite funny that he acted more like a samurai rather than a ninja. He looked at her and gave her a bored look. These two were very close friends. There were rumors that said that they were lovers, seeing as the two were always together. She followed him when he left and came back with the Mizukage. He looked her over and she gave him an evil smirk. "Like what you see?" she asked. "You know that is not proper ninja attire, Kagura," Sentaro said. "What? I can still fight in this. Besides, a ninja's greatness weapon is confusion. Slice a head off while they're too busy looking at the girls." "A perfect strategy," Kagura said. "Only you would say something like that," he said. "So are they almost done in there?" she asked. "Not quite. You think that we will actually join these morons?" Her question was answered by 3 people burst out of the Mizukage's office. They were very angry. "You will regret this," one shouted as he followed his companions out. Kagura just smirked as Sentaro walked into the office. He sat in deep meditation. His short black hair whipped around in the wind. He was dressed in full ninja attire, only his outfit was black. He also had silver bracers on each forearm and gave a serious look that gave the message, "Piss off." His weapon, a sword of large length, lay next to him. He was at peace, but it was interrupted when he felt the arrival of someone familiar. "What is it that you want, Sayuri?" he said. "That's so way to greet your twin sensei," she said. He stood and faced his twin. The two may have been twins, but they were complete opposites. Sayuri was a fun-loving, outgoing type of person, while Sensei was serious and a workaholic. They did have 2 things in common. They both respected the Yondaime and their positions. Sayuri was head of the Hunter Nin division with her knowledge of being a captain. Sensei was the head of Kirigakure's royal guard. Sensei's blue eyes bore into his sister. "What do you want?" "I just came to ask you for your bingo book," she said. "My bingo book?" he asked. "Yeah, my book only has the list of Kirigakure's missing nins. Your book has nins, missing or not, from other villages. I bumped into a group earlier and one of them looked very familiar. I just want to see if it was just my imagination." Sensei nodded and pulled out his bingo book. He tossed it to his sister. As she looked through, he noticed a bird flying overhead. "Looks like Mizukage-sama is summoning us. We had to go, Sayuri," he said. "I think we have bigger problems." She turned to her brother and showed him what she found. It was a picture of a big dog and its master. Sensei looked at his sister to see if she was serious. When he got her serious look, he knew it to be true. He did not like to disobey a summons from the Mizukage, but this was for his protection. The Mizukage sat at his desk while 2 of his top jonin and 3 of his hired jonin stood around him. Sentaro, Kagura, Genji, Momochi Shin and Hibachi Jubei were huddled around him. Momochi Shin was the younger brother of Zabuza. He was in every way like his brother with the exception of a few things. He left Kiri and became a bounty hunter. It was mostly to search for his brother and to bring him to his senses. He was saddened when he learned of his brother's death at the hands of a genin squad. He wanted to charge into Konoha to kill the bastards with his brother's sword. He was glad when he learned that one of the killers was right here in Kirigakure. When he met him, he attacked the young man, but he was quickly beaten by him. Restrained, he was told the story of his brother's death. He still wanted to avenge his brother and challenged him to a duel. He agreed, and 3 weeks later the two met. The battle was fierce as the two traded techniques and sword strikes. In the end, Shin was overpowered. He was then offered to join in the reconstruction of Kirigakure no Sato. He was reluctant at first, but he joined later on, convinced by his brother's old teammates. Hibachi Jubei was a third-generation ninja. The Hibachis were Kirigakure's top assassins. They were trained to be the best at what they do, and Jubei was their finest. He ran Kiri's assassination squad. What did all 5 of these people have in common? They were the new Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu, Kiri's top warriors. So are you going to take their threat seriously? Asked Kagura. Yes and no. The Raikage has a nasty habit of twisting words around, but he's not stupid enough to fight us directly without cause. He'll be too busy dealing with Konoha and Suna, but we must be prepared for it. Knowing him, he might just ask for all his money back. He joked. Are you sure you don't want me to take care of them? Asked Jubei. No, the Mizukage said. We don't need trouble. He then looked around and noticed something. Where are Sayuri and Sansei? I was going to ask that myself. They are usually here, Genji said. Just then a familiar-looking genin appeared in front of them. What is the meaning of this? Asked Shin. My apology, but Sensei sent me to apologize for his not being able to appear, the boy said hurriedly. But it seems that we have spies within Kirigakure. He said. What? The Mizukage said. Sayuri-sensei bumped into some people that were not from here, the boy continued. She recognized one of them, and he has been identified as Inuzuka Kiba, a captain of Konoha's Anbu. Everyone tensed after that. The Mizukage bowed his head in deep thought after hearing that. Did they know that he was here and they sent someone for him? He looked at his ninjas. Sentaro, Shin, he said, fully into his Mizukage mode. I want you two to track down Sansei. Kagura, Genji, I want you two to track down Sayuri. You are to capture them and bring them back here. Jubei, continue watching over the couriers and make sure they leave. Go. The 5 disappeared from his sight. He sighed in frustration as he wondered what would happen next. To cover more ground and to get familiarized with the village, Team 8 split up into 2 groups. Still in their disguises, Shino and Kiba with Akamaru took off in a different direction away from Hinata and Kurenai. As they walked through the town, Kiba smelled something amiss in the air. He turned to Shino and placed his arm over him like they were friends. What are you doing? Shino asked. Something is wrong, he said very quietly. I'm getting a bad vibe. It's like someone is following us. Even Akamaru is acting itchy. Do you think that our cover has been blown? We've only been in the village for a few hours. Do you know who is following us? It's definitely female. That the same perfume that Tome uses when she's. I don't really want to know about you life. We can't fail the mission. We'll lead her into a corner and take care of her. Kiba nodded and the two broke off. They continued on their way with their stalker right behind them. The two lead her to an alley. She followed and wasn't too surprised to see them waiting for her. So you knew that I was following you? You're not ordinary people, are you? She asked. I must apologize, but our mission must not be found out. Shino said, and the two people dissolved into bugs. That's when she was hit by a powerful force from behind. Gatsuga, Kiba roared. He and Akamaru hit their target with tremendous force. Her eyes widened and exploded on impact, into water. Kiba and Akamaru were shaking the water out of their hair, and all 3 turned to soft laughter. The woman was sitting on the roof with her legs crossed and an amused smile. That was some attack, she said with a sneer. I would expect nothing less from Captain Inuzuka Kiba and Vice Captain Aburame Shino. Next time you should leave that dog at home. You really can't change his appearance, seeing that he's the first dog in a bingo book. Now I'm only going to ask you once. Why are Konoha shinobi in Kirigakure? What is your mission? Like we would really tell you anything, said Kiba. She sighed and reached for her sword. I was hoping that you would be inclining to avoid a war with us, but you're just too stubborn. Fine then, we'll do it your way. Shino and Kiba tensed for battle, but they were stopped by the appearance of 2 other swordsmen. Sayuri, stand down, Genji ordered. Genji Taiko, Kagura-sama. She said. Kagura looked at the 2 males. You've been caught, so don't think that you can beat all 3 of us. We're here to escort you to see the Mizukage. Resist and you'll be killed. You do not wish to face 3 members of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu. She said. Kiba and Shino knew that they were caught, and even they had heard of the legendary group of swordsmen. The two gave up without much trouble. At the same time, Sansei stood in front of Hinata and Kurenai. The two had noticed him and tried to eliminate him, but they were both surprised by the speed of this man. He stared at them with a glare. "I'll ask again. Why are you here?" he asked. "We have no reason to tell you," Kurenai said calmly. "Then you leave me no choice. You shouldn't have come here. If you thought we would allow Konoha to kill our cage, then you were incredibly stupid. Now you'll face the power of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu," he said. "Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu? Have they been reunited?" Kurenai thought, very much surprised. Sansei began to pull his sword when he was stopped by Sentaro. He shook his head and Sansei backed off. He turned to Kurenai. "Yuahi Kurenai, Hyuga Hinata, you are under arrest. Unarm yourself or face the consequences," he ordered. The two women turned to see Shin standing right behind them. Kurenai cursed her luck. She and Hinata gave up without a fight. Team 8 stood in front of the Mizukage, the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu surrounding him. He had his hat on and the veil covered his eyes. He stared at the team. "So, I'm guessing that you're here for two reasons," he said with a vaguely familiar voice. "One would be about the war that's about to happen." They remained quiet. "Seeing how the Sandaime Mizukage and the Yondaime Reikage were friends, you attempted to get any info about Kiri joining the war. Am I right?" Silence was his answer. "2. You're here to kill a former Konoha ninja that you banished 12 years ago." The team shot up at that question. The Mizukage smirked under his hat. He took it off his hat and revealed himself. They were shocked to see who was under that hat. His hair had gotten longer and his face more defined, but you couldn't mistake those whisker marks. "No way," said a dumbfounded Kiba. "It can't be," Kurenai exclaimed, not believing her eyes. "NN Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked. The now 6-foot-tall man stood in front of his former comrades in arms. He was the #1 hyperactive, loudmouth, knuckleheaded, and most surprising ninja ever. He was known now as Kiri no Shinku Senku and Yondaime Mizukage, Uzumaki Naruto. He gave them a cheeky smile. "How's it going, guys?" Everyone was still in shock as Naruto kept the smile on his face. He had to admit it was kind of funny. Coming out of his daze, Kiba looked at him. Naruto got confused. "What?" he asked. "Are you really Naruto?" he asked. "Are you serious? Do something only Naruto would do and I might believe you," Kiba said. Naruto stared at his former comrade and placed his hands together in a seal. Everyone tensed as he gathered his chakra. With a short shout, Naruto used a henge and transformed into a very beautiful and very naked woman. The male swordsmen turned their heads and Kiba had to hold his nose from blood that was flowing. You really could not tell with Shino since he had his face covered. "Do you believe me now, Kiba-kun?" she cooed, batting her eyelashes suggestively. All right, I'm convinced. Undo that damn jutsu." Naruto did as he was told and had a huge smirk on his face. Kiba was busy wiping the blood from his nose. Hinata handed a hanky. "I can't believe you still use that technique. I can't believe it still works," Naruto said with a grin. Then his face hardened considerably. "So, you haven't answered my questions yet." Everyone got serious again. "I'm afraid that we cannot answer that question, Mizukage, but I can say that we are not after you. You are no longer a shinobi of Konoha, so there is no reason for us to kill you," Kurenai explained. "That's surprising. I thought for sure that the council would want me dead. I do know a B rank and a rank jutsu that happens to come from your village." They did not miss the tone in his voice when he called Konoha their village, but they kept it to themselves. "Naruto, Tsunade-sama would not allow that," Hinata said quietly, yet firmly. "I know that, but I just thought that they would have overruled her by now. It was one of the reasons that I went into hiding," he said. "You can rest assured that we're not after you," Shino said. "So if you're not here for me, then you're here about the war that you will be fighting." They were silent. "By answering the second question in a negative, you've already answered the first." Kurenai sighed and looked at him. "We were without knowledge of a new Mizukage here in Kirigakure no Sato," she began. "Knowing that Kiri and Kumo have been long-time allies, we thought that Kiri would join the alliance that is threatening our village. We had to find out if that would happen. So you were sent to spy on us to see if we had joined them in their fight?" Kurenai nodded. Naruto placed his head on his hands. He took a deep sigh and looked at them. Under normal circumstances, all of you would be imprisoned. They all looked at him like they were expecting it. But, that is something for the council to decide. That shocked everyone, which made Naruto smile. Here in Kirigakure no Sato, we do things a bit differently. We follow our own code, our own ninja way. Because that's your nindo, Hinata said as quietly as before. Naruto just smiled and stood. He turned to Genji. Genji, call together the council members. Tell them it's an emergency. Sansei, Sayuri, you will be in that meeting. You will tell them about your encounter with the Konoha nins. Hi, they said. He turned to the other four. Take them to a room in the building and watch them. They'll be spending the night here. He said. Yes, Mizukage, they said. Naruto stood and began to walk out when he stopped. He turned his head slightly. It was nice to see you guys again. He walked out of his office with Sansei and Sayuri behind him. Genji disappeared in a plume of smoke. Sentaro walked up to Team 8. Come on, let's go, he ordered. They stood and followed the rest of Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu. Naruto walked toward the discussion room with Sansei and Sayuri. He sensed a question coming from Sansei since he rarely fidgeted. Is there something that you wish to ask Sansei? Yes. I'm not questioning your decision-making, but do you not think that it would be wise not to imprison them? They are quite notorious for gathering information, this team, and despite the fact that you have the best of the swordsmen guarding them, they could still be a threat. He said, I am aware of that and I see your reason, but you must see their reason as well. Naruto said, their reasons, sir? Sayuri said, they face an incredible task ahead of them. They are desperate and have their backs against a wall. They are scratching for any advantage they can get. Even with Gaara's help, they may not pull out of this one like the last time. I understand, but will they now see you as a threat? Sansei asked. No, because we are staying neutral in this fight. What? Sayuri exclaimed. Are they not your old comrades? Do you really hate the Leaf for what they did to you? Sayuri, how dare you? Shouted Sansei. It's okay, Sansei. To answer your questions, I hold no grudge against Konoha. I may have been mad in the past, but that was for about 2 hours. Naruto said with a shrug. Truth in the matter is Konoha is my past, not Kirigakure's. I will not drag these people who have overcome so much into an issue between me and my hometown. As for the comrade thing, the only one who stuck up for me was Hinata. I don't really know how Shino and Kiba stand. The minute they found out that I had the Kyuubi in me, they bolted. I still do consider them comrades, but we've passed the part of being friends. And Tsunade? Sansei asked. Naruto stopped to think about that. She's the Godem Hokage and someone I consider very special to me. He then turned to the twins. You two have a report to prepare. Hi Yondaime-sama. They both disappeared, leaving Naruto alone. Naruto stood there with a slight sad expression. In truth, he wanted to go and help his former home, but like he said to the twins, this was not Kirigakure's problem. He sighed and headed to his scroll room. Obasan, I hope you forgive me for the decision I am going to make. Kiba, Shino, Hinata and Kurenai sat in an office that had a bunch of books in it. Kurenai looked at her surroundings and knew that there was no way out. There were no windows and the only way out was through the front door where 4 members of the swordsmen were standing guard. She sighed and looked around the library. She walked up and took a book out and was quite interested in it. He has some great books, she said almost fondly. Naruto and reading don't seem to go together. Kiba joked. Hinata giggled as she petted Akamaru. You all seem to be taking this situation very calmly. Shino observed. Come on Shino, this is Naruto we're talking about. No matter if he's not a ninja of Konoha, he won't kill us. Kiba said confidently. I would not think that, Kiba, Shino stated simply. Naruto is a cage and as the Mizukage he has to protect the people. You know how far he would go to do that. Are you saying that you have no trust in Naruto-kun? Asked Hinata, almost feeling betrayed. He is no longer a shinobi of Konoha. You were there when he was talking. He clearly does not forgive us. Shino explained. Can you really blame him? After all he did for Konoha and he was banished for it. He was unstable. Did you forget what he did to Sasuke? Are you defending that traitor? Kiba growled. The two looked ready to go at each other. That's enough, Kurenai ordered. The two backed off and took up opposite sides of the room. Look, in our current situation we cannot do anything. Naruto has the ball here and we must approach this carefully. So, for now, we will wait for the decision of Kiri's council. Team 8 nodded and went back to their own devices. In the 9 years since Naruto entered Mizu no Kuni and overthrew the Sandaime, he stayed to help with the restoration of the land. The first thing he did was establish a steady economy. The money that the Sandaime got for his involvement in slave trading was given to the people, so the money ran low. He branched out to other countries, mainly Nami no Kuni and Umi no Kuni. He only went to them to make them clients to bring in money for the village. Both lands hired them and income slowly but steadily came in. When Naruto became the Mizukage, the leaders of these non-shinobi nations wished to become one with Mizu no Kuni. They were accepted and the small land became big. Seeing as Naruto couldn't really rule this new land by himself, a new council was created. There were 3 members, each coming from a different place but had the best interest of the people. The first one was Genko Saito. He was a former elder of the old council but was stripped of his land and worldly possessions when he went against the Sandaime. His family was sold into slavery and he was sentenced to death and would have been killed if it was not for Naruto, Sentaro and Kagura. After the overthrow of the Sandaime, he went in search of his family. He found them quite easily, seeing how as the Shinku Senku took out one of Kumo's many slave camps. He pledged his loyalty to Naruto. The second elder was Yamashima Rugen. He was a trader that helped in Kiri's restoration. He set up the deals and missions that were given. He also set up trade lines to further increase Kiri's development. He really had no reason to stay until he allowed himself to get passionately in love with one of the Hibachis. Needless to say, he did not wish to be hunted down by the whole Hibachi clan. The third member was an old friend and Naruto's first serious client as a genin of Konoha, Tazuna. It didn't take too much convincing. He left everything in the capable hands of his grandson, Inari, so he took on the position of an elder. Sansei had just finished his report to the council. "All right, Sansei, you may leave," said Naruto. Sansei bowed and left. Naruto turned to the council and looked at each man. They were not pleased. "So why are we discussing this again? It seems clear that we must imprison these ninja," said Rugen. "I'm asking for a favor to allow them to leave." Naruto said. "You can't be serious, Naruto. We've got them dead to rights on trespassing and spying." Tazuna said. "They will be needed for the war that they will have to fight. Even so, we can't just allow them to just walk out without as much as a punishment." Saito said. "I'm not suggesting that at all," Naruto said, trying to keep his cool. "I called this meeting to find a different way. A way that as a whole, Konoha feels the punishment but allows them to return back to their home. Naruto, I know that these people were once friends of yours, but you must put your personal feelings aside. Are you really willing to just let this go after years of healing?" asked Tazuna. Naruto just sighed and lowered his head. Tazuna knew that Naruto held no grudges toward Konoha and he knew of Naruto's want to go to Konoha. Sighing, he turned to his fellow council members. "Perhaps there is another way." "Are you kidding?" asked Saito. "Just hear me out. What if we place an embargo on Hai no Kuni?" he said. "An embargo?" asked Rugen. "If we restrict Konoha from coming to Mizu no Kuni, we would easily cripple them in a financial way. I know for a fact that many have come for Hai no Kuni to Nami no Kuni." The elders seemed to be thinking about it. "What of the spies?" asked Saito. "Well, we do need messengers to relay our decision," Tazuna said with a slight smirk. The elders seemed to think about what was suggested. Saito suddenly spoke up. "While I don't agree with this, I do feel that this will send a message not only to Konoha but to the rest of the world. It is a win-win situation for us. Anything that would cripple someone's finances is a clear message." Rugen said. "So are we in agreement?" asked Tazuna. "Yes," they both said. Naruto bowed to the council. "Thank you for this," he said. Yeah, just get out of here, kid," Tazuna said. As he left, the elders looked at each other. "So what was that about Tazuna?" asked Rugen. "For all he has given, I think this is the least we can give back," he said. "We are all grateful for what he has done, but we will be exposed now." Saito said. "Perhaps it is time to stop hiding and to show our strength." Naruto along with Kagura and Sentaro stood in the middle of the great Naruto bridge. Kurenai and her team stood there as well. Naruto had informed them of the council's decision last night. Kurenai and Shino were shocked while Kiba and Hinata weren't too surprised. The two groups stared at each other until Naruto spoke. "This is where we part." Pulling a scroll from his robes, he handed Kurenai. "This is the decision handed down from the council. Let Tsunade know that this is the price for letting you go. Also, he said, handing another scroll to Kurenai. This is for Tsunade and Jiraiya eyes only. Only they can see it. It shouldn't take you more than 2 days if you really push it to make it back. I wish you luck on your journey. He said. They turned around and started to walk away. Naruto. Kiba called. Naruto stopped and turned around. If it means anything, I'm sorry. Naruto stared at him as if he was searching for something. Kiba tensed as he awaited a response. What he got was not what he was expecting. Just don't get your ass handed to you like you did when I beat at the Chunin exams. Naruto shouted with a childish grin. What did you say? Kiba demanded hotly. Hey, listen here, Dobi. That was a lucky win. I know that I would have beaten you if you hadn't farted in my face. Say what you want, the blonde answered, his grin never fading. You got beat. Just admit you suck and you'll live happier. What? Kiba cried, seeing red. That's it. I don't care if you are the Mizukage. I'm gonna beat your ass from here to Konoha. You want to go, mutt? Let's go. Kurenai and Kagura both sighed at their childish antics and pulled the fuming Kiba and grinning Naruto apart. Orochimaru watched impassively as Ikazuki backhanded his courier. The refusal of Kirigakure's was not a big blow but a blow none of the less. Ikazuki was foaming at the mouth as his couriers trembled in fear. How dare that fat pig disobey me, he growled. But sir, this is not the same Mizuka. He was sent sailing by another backhand. I don't care who the Mizukage of Kiri is. Everyone has his price. Who does this Mizukage think he is? He's the Shinku Senku. Another courier shouted, hoping to be spared. That stopped everyone in their tracks. What did you say? Barugu demanded, in an almost too calm voice. The Yondaime Mizukage is the Shinku Senku. He said. In a flash, he was against the wall by his throat by the Tsuchikage. What do you mean the Shinku Senku? He sneered. I swear that it's him. It was just as the wanted posters described him. He gasped. Barugu grabbed his head and smashed him into the wall, killing him instantly. Barugu had a short history with the man named Shinku Senku. There was a battle in one of his strongholds. He went along just to see what the problem was. What he saw would forever be in his mind. The 500 ninjas that he had there were beaten. Some had injuries that they would not survive, some would never be ninjas again. He had not seen such devastation since the Third Great Ninja War. One of the survivors had explained what happened. One of Barugu's captains had wiped out a small and poor village, and this one ninja paid them back for it. He said that that ninja moved almost as fast as the Konoha no Kiroi Senku. But his whole body was covered in a violent red chakra and he had blue eyes that turned red. He said it was as if a demon attacked them. His captain was killed, but it was the way he was killed that pissed him off. The burn on his chest was the work of the Rasengan, the Yondaime Hokage's special attack. Ikazuki had also heard of the Shinku Senku. He was one of those outlaws that attacked his slave camps that he had hidden from the council. It was a great loss of wealth that he blamed on that monster. The Shinku Senku, he growled again. Barugu turned to one of his advisors. Gather 3 platoons, I'm going to Kirigakure. What? Asked Oboro. What are you doing, Barugu? Orochimaru asked coldly. I'm going to destroy that demon, and then destroy Kirigakure. Barugu said. Hey, you moron, we have a war against Konoha to deal with. Oboro said snidely. Forget Konoha, I won't let that man walk another day alive. Roared Barugu. Perhaps you forget where you are, Barugu? Orochimaru said, almost calmly. Are you threatening me? He asked, turning an evil eye on Orochimaru. No, but I'm reminding you of your position. Can you really take the chance of disobeying me? Barugu visibly flinched under the cold stare of Orochimaru. He had been in more battles before Orochimaru could walk, but the younger man held so much more power than him. He could not risk a fight with him now. Fine, we'll deal with Konoha first, he said in clear reluctance. Orochimaru smirked, but he was curious. He had heard whispers of this Shinku Senku, but thought nothing of it. It seems now that he would have to look into this man a bit more. If this man could cause such concern in such a powerhouse as Barugu, then he could become a danger in the near future. Just like Naruto said, it took 2 days of travel to make it back. Tsunade was surprised by this and called a meeting to discuss it. The elders, Jiraiya, clan leaders, squad leaders and squad captains were present for this meeting. As Kurenai explained the mission failure, everyone was not too happy. The news of the return of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu did not fit well with everyone. Also, the news of the Yondaime Mizukage being the fabled Shinku Senku really didn't sit well with the council. Kurenai finished her report and handed Tsunade the scrolls that she received from the Mizukage. As she looked over the scroll, the vice captain of Nay, a man wearing a dragon mask, began to speak. So he just let you go without any penalties? He sounds weak to be the Mizukage, he said with a clear sneer in his voice. That may have been the case, but I assure you that he is very strong. Kiba said sarcastically. Even with the mask, everyone could see the glare in his eyes. So what did he do? Asked Kaharu. He placed an embargo on us, Tsunade said, not looking up from the scroll. What? Said Hamaru. Kirigakure no Sato has placed an embargo on us. No one from Hai no Kuni is allowed into Mizu no Kuni. Can they do that? Asked Sakura, disbelieving. Yes, and what is worse is that the seals of Nami no Kuni and Umi no Kuni are also on this decree. It seems that they are now part of Mizu no Kuni. They have increased their borders? This must be dealt with. Danzo growled. I wouldn't if I was you, Hutai Omo. Jiraiya said, studying the second scroll. This Shinku Senku isn't a pushover. This second scroll that he gave to Kurenai has very complex seals surrounding it. A chakra seal, a blood seal, the blinding seal, it could have so many seals. This man is an accomplished seal master, a master that is probably on the level of me and the Yondaime. All the more reason that we must take care of this. Danzo insisted. I believe defending ourselves from the four nations that wants to destroy us takes primary concern. Tsunade observed. She turned to Jiraiya. Can you break the seals? Maybe you don't have to. The Mizukage did say that it was for Jiraiya-sensei and Hokage-sama eyes only. Hinata informed them, speaking up for the first time. Shrugging, he bit his thumb and placed it on the scroll. The scroll's seal seemed to analyze Jiraiya's chakra. The seal broke and Jiraiya opened the scroll. He watched as words appeared right in front of his eyes. Jiraiya handed it to Tsunade. She read the scroll and her eyes widened in shock. Sakura tried to read the scroll but everything just was blurry. Tsunade slammed the scroll down and looked at her captains. Recall every ninja at the borders. Get the villagers ready to move immediately and close gates. It seems that we have been tricked. What did you read, Tsunade? Asked Kaharu, worried. Sakura, explain. She ordered. I'm sorry Hokage-sama, I could not read the scroll. What? Like I said, this guy is a master of seals. I doubt that even the Byakugan can read it. Jiraiya said. It seems that Uzumaki has grown quite strong. Shino said loud enough for everyone to hear him. His teammates looked at him with dark looks while Kurenai just sighed. Everyone just looked at the team in front of them. What did you say? Tsunade said, unsure she heard him correctly. Shino was about to say something but he was beaten by Kurenai. The Yondaime Mizukage and the Shinku Senku is Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade stared out of the window of her office. The news of Mizukage's identity was a huge shock. Many emotions were stirring inside her. One of them was relief. The council had forbidden Jiraiya and herself from looking for him. To know that he was safe and sound lifted a very huge weight off her chest. Another emotion was sadness. Maybe it was stupid of her to think that he held no grudge toward Konoha. He saved it more than once, so she figured that he would do it again. Guess she was wrong, but her sadness quickly turned into happiness. He may not have helped with his army, but he did with his letter. She looked at it again. Hey Tsunade Obasan, Ero Senin, stupid brat. I guess you know who this is by now. I figure either Shino or Kurenai has told you who I am. Not that I blame them or hold a grudge against them. I write this letter as an apology. I would like nothing more than to help, but this is not Kirigakure's problem. If anything, this is between me and Konoha and I feel no need to bring Kiri into it. My nation is going to stay neutral in this war. With that out of the way, I need to warn you that you are being tricked. Jiraiya's contacts, the Fuma clan, has been wiped out. The attack will happen in 5 days, not 3 weeks. Trust me on this, Ba-chan, it is not a trick. I would not have placed all these seals on the scroll if I didn't take this seriously. That's all I have to say. I wish you luck and I hope that we can meet again. Uzumaki Naruto. Yondaime Mizukage, leader of another village and still helping. Stupid brat, next time I see him I'll plow him for calling me old. She said in an affectionate whisper. She heard a knock on her door. What is it? she ordered. The door opened to reveal Sakura. Hokage-sama, the border patrols have returned as requested and the villagers are being informed of the evacuation of the village. She said. Good, Tsunade said without facing her. There was an eerie silence that followed. Is there something else that you wish to say? I was wondering your stand on the Mizukage, she asked. Are you wondering or is the council? She sneered. I'm sorry if you have work at the hospital to do. I suggest that you get to it. Tsunade ordered. Sakura sighed and left her office. Kind of harsh, don't you think? Said a voice. Tsunade turned to her comrade. He was sitting on a giant of a frog. The frog winked at Tsunade. That was fast. So is it true? Yes, he said sadly, head nodded in defeat. No one was spared. He killed them all. It was a good idea to call the border patrol back. The Kumo and Iwa ninjas attacked some of our outposts. Also, I made sure that Suna got here safely. The AIM ninjas have been ambushing them constantly. Gaara has lost 40% of his forces. Orochimaru had this planned out greatly. So what's the next move? Our main concern is the villagers for now. I'll speak to the cage tomorrow. She said. So what is your stand on Naruto? He asked. She gave a deep sigh. I have no stand. I would have to see him again to have a thought about it. What about you? Pride is my stand. I mean, I trained 2 people who became Kage. Man, I'm good. He joked with a wide sneer. Tsunade didn't laugh at the joke and just took another gulp of sake. Jiraiya just smirked at her. Don't sweat it. He'll come back. How can you be so sure? She asked. Because we're his precious people. He said. Tsunade just looked at him. She chuckled and climbing onto the bullfrog. Jiraiya got a perverted grin on his face when he felt 2 soft S on his back. Don't get any ideas. Try anything and I'll finish the job that I started when I caught you peeking, got it? She threatened. Jiraiya muttered something but he nodded all the same. He took off for the nearest bar. Naruto sighed as he stamped another document. Being the Mizukage sucks, he grumbled. Stop your whining. Shinku Senku, my ass. You don't see me complaining about being your keeper for today. What about when Sentaro had to bring you here over his shoulder? He asked with a smirk. I heard you screaming and cursing from the other side of Kiri. Shut up, Kagura growled. She sighed and just handed him another scroll. He sighed as well and gave it a stamp. He looked out the window into the blue sky. You could have helped them. Kagura said, catching onto his train of thought. Look, I made the decision for the good of Kirigakure, he said, suddenly feeling very defensive. True and it is, Kagura said, nodding in confirmation. But it's not the decision that you want. Besides it would have been fun to do some damage. Is that you or the demon scythe talking? Kagura looked at her innocent scythe, then with a slight raise of her eyebrow, she just shrugged. Maybe it's the both of us. Kagura looked at Naruto. What I do know is that you say that you hold no grudge, but you do. It's time to let go of the past, Naruto-san. Maybe if you do, then maybe you wouldn't be so preoccupied and maybe you could get laid. She joked. Naruto just gave her a dirty look and sighed. Perhaps she was right in saying that to him. Did he really hold a grudge against them? If he did, then should he help them? He turned to Kagura. Let's get out of here. I need some air, Naruto said. He stood and walked out of his office. Yes, Mizukage-sama, she whispered and followed him out. Kiba helped his wife pack. The evacuation order had been given and he was getting his family out as soon as possible. Hanryu had a pout on her face since she couldn't stay for the action. He chuckled and put the last of her stuff in her bag. He was going to see if his wife needed something when he turned to see Shino standing in the hall. Kiba had a frown on his face. Your wife let me in, Shino said. What do you want, Aburame? Kiba asked. Shino did not speak. Kiba seemed to get the message and turned to his daughter. All right kiddo, it's time to go. He said. All right, she said in a bored tone. He ruffled her hair some and scooted her out of her room. She's getting big, Shino commented almost affectionately. You came for a reason, Kiba stated, wishing to make this visit as short as possible. I came to help, Shino said simply. Yeah, you helped out big time at the briefing. I don't regret saying what I said. It was valuable information that we knew. In the long run, it will help us against him. Shino said. There you go again. You're so sure that Naruto will attack us. You were in the room when we were there. He may say that he holds no grudge but it was just another mask that he wore. You're no better than the rest of these morons, Kiba growled, his hackles rising in his anger. He's not the Kyuubi, damn it. You think that your family was the only family to lose loved ones? The Inuzuka clan lost just as much as the Aburame clan, and we hold no grudge against Naruto. He never asked to have the Kyuubi no Yoko put into him. He's not the demon. The two teammates stared at each other in silence. Shino just turned around and walked away. Kiba just sighed. He wished that things were not so complicated. Kurenai stood in the back of her house and watched as her flowers grew. She did not intend for Naruto's position to get out. She was going to talk to Tsunade privately about the matter, but Shino let the information slip. She wasn't angry at him too much. He had known nothing about Naruto being a container at first, but she was disappointed in his abandonment of him when he did learn of it. He looked at him just like the villagers did, and she was ashamed of it. It was probably why he drifted so far from Kiba and Hinata, seeing that Hinata did not care about it and Kiba came around later. She sighed again and wondered what Tsunade must be thinking. Suddenly, a pair of arms circled around her waist. She just leaned into the embrace with a welcomed moan. Her hand moved to as if she was going to rub the person's cheek, but the hand moved toward the person's mouth and she pulled a cigarette out of it. "Hey, that was my last one," he complained. "You're hugging your wife, not an ashtray." She growled, not exactly in the mood for his addiction to the cancer sticks. "You're lovely when you're angry," he joked, a small smile on his face. "Oh, shut up." Kurenai turned to face her husband, Sarutobi Asuma. The retired Junin and teacher did not really change as much. He still smoked, he was still laid back, and he could still fight, just not at full strength anymore. Kurenai thanked God that he survived the encounter with the Akatsuki members, Haiden and Kakuzu. It was all thanks to Nara Shikamaru quick thinking and Yamanaka Ino healing abilities. Who would have thought that Shikamaru could have made a shadow bubble that put Asuma in suspended animation? It kept him alive enough for them to get back to Konoha and for Tsunade to work her magic. After that, the two admitted their feelings for each other and were married a year later. They both had 2 kids, a 5-year-old girl named Sayoi and 10-month baby boy named Takna. "So what were you thinking about? I hope it isn't about the briefing," he asked. When she didn't answer, he sighed. "It isn't your fault. I should have sworn them to secrecy. Not even Shino would have disobeyed." She said, "It would have come out sooner. You don't keep such things a secret." He said, "Maybe, but I still feel guilty. We are all at fault, even my father is. That law was a stupid idea to begin with. If they had known what had really happened, then maybe everyone would have understood the Yondaime's last wish." "Yes, but he did it for the safety of the boy." "So how is Naruto?" "He's stronger than ever. Did you know that he's the Shinku Senku?" "You're kidding. Man, won't Kakashi kick himself if he knew that?" "Yeah, right," Kurenai said, sarcasm dripping from her voice, like he cares at all about Naruto. Asuma knew when it was time to change the subject whenever Kakashi was mentioned. Kurenai was not the only one who disliked the copy ninja. She lost all respect for him after Naruto's banishment. The two couldn't even be in the same room with each other. Asuma kissed his wife's neck, which caused her to giggle. "Come on," he said. "We have to get the kids ready to go. Udon and Moge are going to take them to safety." Kurenai nodded and the two walked into their house. Neji sat in the hot spring in deep thought. He was at the briefing when the news was spilled. He felt happy for his friend and a bit of jealousy. He noticed how mad Hinata was when Shino had talked. He was thinking that maybe she still had feelings for him. You just don't forget your first love at the drop of a hat. His marriage to Hinata was done to ensure that the strength of the Hyuga would grow. Neji, who was now part of the Anbu, was the strongest of the branch house warriors, and Hinata was the heir, winning the right in a fight with Hanabi. The elders thought that the mixing would create a new strength for their clan. Sadly, the two had never consummated the marriage. Hinata was just getting over Naruto's banishment and Neji gave her the time she needed. Over the years, Neji became quite fond of Hinata, but he kept his distance because of Naruto. He sighed, not knowing what to think. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal Hinata. She was wearing her bathing robe. She walked up to her husband and kneeled down next to him. "Do you want me to wash your back?" she asked. "Do as you wish," he said. Hinata sighed and looked at her husband. "Is there anything wrong?" Neji was silent for a minute before he answered. Are you still in love with Naruto?" Hinata was shocked by the question, but it quickly turned into understanding. It had taken a long time for her to come to terms with Naruto's banishment. Getting married to her cousin was just too much, but he understood her feelings and stayed at a distance. In the years she also began to feel something for Neji, but her feelings were conflicted. The reunion with Naruto was actually something positive. Seeing him again, she did not feel the same feelings when she was younger. When she returned, she was happy to be back with Neji and was saddened when he got so cold toward her. She wanted to be with her husband. Neji just hung his head when he got no answer. That's when he felt a pair of lips on his. His eyes widened to see his wife in front of him. The kiss ended and he was in a state of confusion. She placed her hand on his cheek. "Neji, my husband, you think way too much," she said. Neji was still very confused, but he could understand later. Sweeping his wife in his arms, he kissed her with all the passion he could muster. Hinata welcomed it with opened arms. Perhaps tonight they could consummate their marriage. Iruka sat at the ramen stand. He couldn't really eat the ramen that was in front of him. He couldn't even concentrate on the very beautiful woman who was trying to flirt with him. The only thing on his mind was Naruto, the Yondaime Mizukage. It wasn't that he wasn't proud of his former student, but rather he was disappointed in his decision. The woman in question finally realized that he wasn't even paying attention to her. Pissed, she slapped him in the back of his head. Iruka turned to her with a dirty look. "What the hell?" he asked, trying not to sound too severe when he realized who was sitting by him. "You have some nerve. I'm trying to flirt with you and all you can think about is your little brother. So he's not the Hokage? Big deal. He's the Mizukage, damn it. What about me? What about my needs? We haven't even seen each other since that damn alert and you," she ranted. Iruka just looked at the ranting woman. How he ever got involved with her was beyond him. She didn't even have an interest in him before. It only started when he made Junin not too long ago. They had a mission and he saved her life. From then on she wouldn't leave him alone. He admitted to himself that he didn't mind that it was her. She was beautiful, very white, and very much like Naruto. That was something that disturbed him for a while, but he broke out of that. Or rather, she did when she tackled and ravished him in the teacher's lounge. She was still going, so he decided to end it. He kissed her, which shut her up, and he squeezed her left boob, which made her moan. He ended the public makeout session and looked at her in the eyes. "Sorry about ignoring you," he apologized sincerely. "I guess I was just caught up about old times." She blinked and looked at the man in confusion. She never met someone like him. Before she didn't really care about the lowly Chunin, even after he made Junin. Then there was that mission. Taking 5 kunai in the back, for her, made her look at him in a different way. The first 2 years, he avoided her mostly out of fear, but she finally got him. Sure, it may have been a bit overbroad to rush him, pin him, and ravished him for about 2 hours, but she finally got him. It was from then that the two were an item. She wouldn't really call it a relationship. It was more of an unleashing of tensions, but she did care for him. Finally getting back in control, she took his hand and led him from the stand. He barely managed to pay before he was dragged away. "Hey, where are we going?" She stopped and turned around. She placed a kiss on his lips. It confused him, seeing as there was no tongue involved. That's when he felt her hand squeeze his butt. She gave him a seductive smile. "You didn't think you could grope me without any consequences?" she whispered. Iruka smiled at her. "Exactly what type of consequences?" he asked, almost innocently. "Come with me and find out," she said with a batting of her eyelashes. Iruka did just that. He would never understand the hold that Mitarashi Anko held over him. But who was he to complain? Kiba took another gulp of his drink. He sat alone in the bar. He saw his wife and kid off and he felt kind of depressed. He sighed as he took another gulp off his sake and poured himself another one. "You keep drinking like that and you won't make it home," a familiar voice said. Kiba turned to see Shikamaru and Choji. Shikamaru hadn't really changed. Aside from the cigarette in his mouth, being a Sunanin, married to Sabaku no Tamari and having 3 kids, he was still the same lazy genius that gave up in the Chunin exam. Choji had changed. He was not as big as before, mostly because of his wife, Yamanaka Ino. He wore armor now and he carried a zanbuto. They grabbed some seats and sat at the table. "So, I heard about Naruto. Is it true?" asked Shikamaru. "Yep, he's the Yondaime Mizukage," Kiba said. "Who would have thought that our loudmouth would have made Kage?" Choji asked. "He did have a way of making his own destiny," a new voice said. They turned to see Neji. He sat and ordered some plum wine. Kiba noticed something about the usually stoic Hyuga. "Why are you so happy?" he asked. "Hinata and I have finally come to an understanding," he said. "You guys finally did it, huh?" Choji asked. Neji just coughed and said nothing, but his cheeks were a little red. "Had that same look when Tamari and I slept together. I only wished that I didn't have to run through Konoha naked." Shikamaru grumbled. Choji started to chuckle as he remembered that day. It was before they got married and he moved to Sanagakure. Gaara and Kankuro were not happy to see their dear sister with the shadow user in the middle of their lovemaking. The two tried to kill him as he ran through the streets. Shikamaru shot his friend a dirty look. "Well, I'm happy for you, but I can't believe that it took you so long. She was over Naruto years ago." Kiba said. "Shut up. The deed was done and we're happy." "So about Naruto?" "Yes, let's talk about Naruto," another new voice said. All four knew who it was without even turning, and they were not happy. Uchiha Sasuke was not a friend among them, but the villagers were willing to forgive the bastard. He was wearing standard Junin clothes and vest. Behind him was Sai. He was a wise ass to everyone. He would always belittle everyone he met. He had a weird skill that dealt with ink, but no one really cared. "What do you want, Uchiha?" asked Neji coldly. "I was wondering about your report, Kiba. It seemed a lot shorter than Shino's," he said. "Must be fun being Danzo's little slave. Shows how far the Uchiha clan has fallen," Kiba said. Sasuke glared at him. He really didn't care about what people thought about him, but being called a slave did not sit well with him. "I would watch who you talk to, Inuzuka. You may be an ANBU, but I'm from the NA, and we are the elite," he stated. "You sure did look like an elite 12 years ago," Choji said with a small grin at the bittersweet memory. "It was kind of funny to hear that you were dragged through the gates by the dead last," Shikamaru said, a strange gleam in his eye. "Oops, I apologize for that. What I meant to say was the Yondaime Mizukage Uzumaki Naruto." Sasuke was boiling in rage. He did not like being reminded of his defeat to Naruto. To know that Naruto had reached Kage level was another blow to his pride. He calmed down and gave the table a smirk. "The Dobi could never beat me," Sasuke growled, more to himself. He had help in the form of his host. If it was not for the Kyuubi, then he would be the one coming home near death. In fact, I'd say that it was all the Kyuubi's doing when it comes to his strength. Borrowed strength, that's all he has. "You're still a petty, little man," Neji said. "What did you say, Hyuga?" "Naruto may have the Kyuubi's strength to draw on," the Hyuga said. "But he never depends on it. His own strength surpasses that of the Kyuubi's. How else can he hold the strongest of all the tailed demons?" "Tamari told me about the fight between Naruto and Gaara," Shikamaru said suddenly. "Naruto was able to overcome him with just his own chakra. He didn't use the Kyuubi's chakra until he had to summon the Toad Boss, and even then he was in control of himself. Then there was the Chunin exams all those years ago. If Neji had not stopped the flow of chakra in Naruto's body, then he would not have had to use the demon's chakra. The only time Naruto even uses the Kyuubi's chakra is because of high emotions," Choji observed. "I guess when someone you thought as of a brother rams his hand through his chest, you lose control. Face it, Uchiha. The man who everyone thought as the dead last, or as the demon, surpassed you a long time ago," Kiba said with a wide smirk. "Why you?" Sasuke growled. He was about to charge when he felt a sharp pain. He grabbed his shoulder and growled. He forced the workings of the curse seal back. He had no delusions that any one of these men would follow through with Tsunade's decree. A decree that if he even used the curse mark, he was to be dealt with permanently. "What's wrong, Uchiha? You can't handle the pain?" Sasuke growled at them. He turned and stalked out of the bar. Sai followed with an amused look. Sakura sighed as she finished the last of her work. It wasn't easy being one of the heads of the medical department and Tsunade's temporary assistant. Though, she would rather have been just one of the heads of the medical department. Tsunade was just so impossible to work with. She treated her with a cold tone and indifference. It was the same as when she started her medical training. It just seemed that she would forever blame her for being a part of Naruto's banishment. It wasn't as if she didn't feel bad already about it. She sighed and took a sip of her tea. Her life had been a road of very tough trails. The medic program that was made by the Hokage was the toughest. It wasn't because of the competition but because of the other two people who joined. Ino was one of them. The two hardly spoke, but she would constantly try and outdo her. Hinata was the other one. The Hyuga heiress, and she did not get along at all. In fact, in a simple sparring match, she almost killed Sakura. She was surprised that the Hokage, who was watching the fight, did nothing to stop her. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. But it just wasn't them but the whole Rookie 9. Neji treated her like trash, Kiba took every opportunity to belittle her, Choji just ignored her, Shikamaru didn't even look at her, and Lee just gave her disappointed looks. The only ones who she spoke to were Shizune, Tenten, and Sasuke, although it wasn't by choice. For 3 years she asked herself why she was being treated this way. And it wasn't until an argument with Tsunade did she finally understand. Flashback. What do you mean I was wrong? I did everything that was expected of me. Sakura shouted. You blocked a vein that would have killed the man. If Ino wasn't around, he would have died. Next time, you should be more careful and concentrate on your task. Tsunade said. Sakura had balled her fists and was very angry. She turned to leave. Just blaming me for Naruto, that's all. She muttered. She didn't do it low enough for Tsunade not to hear. Excuse me? She asked with a hard tone. Sakura was about to say nothing, but she was mad at her and decided to give the Godem a piece of her mind for once. You're just blaming me and everyone else for Naruto's banishment. She yelled in a foul temper. It was for the best for everyone. He was an unstable creature that hurt Sasuke. The Kyuubi was taking over and he would have been a danger to everyone in the village. So you stop blaming everybody including me. Quote. She felt a lot better now that she got that off her chest. That was when she was lifted and slammed violently into the wall hard. She looked at Tsunade's eyes and gulped in fear. Shizune was about to cut in, but a hard glare from her teacher stopped her in her tracks. She turned back to Sakura. You are nothing but a disgrace, Tsunade said in a slow, dangerous tone. You just like those fools who couldn't see beyond the Kyuubi. He saved your Sasuke from Orochimaru. He stopped Orochimaru from gaining the Sharingan. He saved the village for a 3rd time, and all you could do is think about that traitor. Did you know that he used your sensei's killing technique on Naruto? Did you know that Naruto was near death? Did you? After he kept his promise to a weak little girl like you, did you even thank him? You just followed the crowd and deemed him a threat. So yes, I blame you and everyone in this damn village because you didn't deserve such a hero. Tsunade dropped Sakura on her butt. Now, get out, she ordered, and Sakura did just that. Present. After that, Sakura did some deep thinking and she realized that Tsunade was right. If she could turn back time, she would have been there for Naruto, but that was not going to happen. He was now a cage, and he had decided not to help. She had thrown away another friend for the 2nd time in her life and she felt awful about it. A small tear fell from her eye into her cup. A man stood in front of the memorial stone. He had been coming here since the death of his friends and his sensei. It was one of the reasons he was so late. He was here for a different reason now, as he could not look at the stone. It was because of the news that he got from Guy. His former student was the Yondaime Mizukage and the Shinku Senku. It brought back his flaws as a teacher. He never took another team because of these flaws. He never trained Naruto and he wasn't there to try and stop his banishment. He had lost respect from his peers and his leader. He could not face the stone as he felt that they were looking at him with shame in their eyes. He had failed to protect his sensei's legacy and he had failed his friends. He had once said to Team 7 that those who abandon their friends and teammates are even worse than trash. He had meant it. Now thinking back on it, he had not followed his own words or that of his dead comrade. Naruto walked through his mindscape, which was like a sewer. Usually he would walk around this place in his deep thoughts, but this time was different. He was pissed and he walked to the center of this place with a purpose and maybe to sink a certain demon alive. He reached his destination. He stood in front of the gate that held the demon that took the lives of many shinobi of Konoha. He glared at the gate. Hey, you stupid fox. Get your ass out here, now. Naruto ordered. He soon felt a foul and vicious chakra. Huge eyes and sharp fangs appeared before him and snarled at him. You have some balls ordering me out here, brat. The Kyuubi no Kitsune growled. Naruto stood unafraid of the beast. They stared at each other in silence until Kyuubi got annoyed. What do you want? I want you to stop your stupid games. He barked. I don't know what you mean. Cut the crap, furball. I'm not asking you to stop, I'm telling you to stop. A violent roar was his answer as red chakra came charging right at him. Just as the chakra reached him, it was blown back by 4 pillars. The pillars looked like 4 people with armor. It protected Naruto and sent the red chakra back. Naruto gave the Kyuubi a smirk. Forget about my seal? In the 12 years that he traveled, Naruto had learned various techniques and training styles. On one trip, before he met up with Sentaro and Kagura, he met a priestess in Ishi no Kuni. She took him in and taught him about seals. For a year, she taught him everything she knew and she was surprised by his ability to learn things at a fast rate. It was she who helped him strengthen his already weakened seal. The technique was called Garen no Yoji Fuki. It was a technique worked with the Yondaime's seal. It allowed drained the Kyuubi's chakra while it kept out his influence. It also enabled Naruto to take the Kyuubi's chakra without asking and protected him from the Kitsune's rage. The seal was powered by his own chakra which was much stronger than his. The Kyuubi growled at her container. You worthless little monkey. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you dare to mock? I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the strongest of all the tailed demons. You will know your place. He roared. Shove it. In a few more years you'll be dead and I'll be free of you. I may have to deal with you until then but I won't be part of your sick games. Your little visions of Konohagakure in flames are really annoying. You'll stop it now. The Kyuubi was about to roar again until he allowed Naruto's words to sink in. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he began to chuckle. It then turned into full-blown laughter. What's so funny? You may have grown in strength and skill but you're still the same stupid kid. Did you forget the workings of your own seal? It keeps our minds apart. I can no longer communicate with you unless you come here. Those visions are of your own doing. All because of the choice you made, which by the way was a good one. Naruto sneered at the fox because he knew that he was right. The seal did keep their minds apart. I really don't need your advice on the decisions I make. The Kyuubi looked at him as if he was analyzing him. He let out another roar in laughter. You are a foolish person. You're planning on going there to save them again. I don't know what you're talking about. We may be separated in mind but I still know how you think. At least tell me why you're even considering on helping them? I don't think you would understand human thinking, Naruto muttered darkly. You're right, I wouldn't understand. A good thing too or else I may have to kill myself. I grow bored of this conversation. If there is nothing else, then get out of my sight. May you have pleasant dreams, Yondaime. He joked and disappeared from Naruto's view. Naruto closed his eyes and reopened them. He was back in his chambers. Being a seal master required a lot of mediation, something he really had trouble with. After years of practice, he was able to go to the Kyuubi without trying to kill himself. He stood up and looked out his window. He couldn't help but feel that he was right. He did want to go but he had responsibilities here. Konoha was his past now and he felt it was time to let go of that past. He sighed and went back to bed. Orochimaru, Ikazuki, Barugu and Oboro sat in a tent. They were not in very happy moods. It seemed that their plan was discovered. When the Oto, Iwa and Kumo attacked Konoha's outpost they found no one there. There were some outposts that were set up as traps and they lost a little of their combined forces. Also, the AIM ninjas ran into some trouble in the form of Jiraiya. Because of his intervention, Suna only lost about 40% of their forces. Orochimaru began to wonder if there were more spies in their midst, but he could not worry about that now. Even with those setbacks, they still had more than Konoha. The attack would happen on schedule, and there was nothing Jiraiya or Tsunade could do about it. Kenji Sumo didn't really hate his job as a teacher. He just hated little kids. Well, he didn't hate them but he just didn't have the patience for them. It was one of the reasons he didn't have any kids. They were noisy and out of control. They were always expecting to be coddled and babied. He sighed as he watched from the back as the Mizukage talked to the kids of the academy. He was kind of disappointed that he brought Sentaro with him instead of Kagura or Sayuri. He listened in as the Mizukage answered questions from the soon-to-be genin. He was quite curious when one of the students asked about his place of birth. It was a known fact that he was from Konohagakure. He found it quite funny that they banished such a strong ninja. Oh well, their loss. He thought with a grin. There was a question that made the Mizukage flinch. Kenji noticed. It was, would you ever go back home? The Mizukage looked a little sad when it was asked, which confused the teacher. The Mizukage was always a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. It was a surprise to see him in such a depressed state. He quickly hid it and put on a smile on again. He answered the question which brought a cheer from the class, but he could tell it was nothing but a mask. He hoped that his leader got over his depression. He brought such a bright light to the people of Kirigakure, and it would be a shame if it was blown out. Naruto stood in the clearing of his personal training field. He was dressed in a black sleeveless shirt and black baggy pants. He needed to let loose of stress he was having. The visit to the school was a good one, but the 2 questions about his home reminded him of his late-night conversion with the Kyuubi. Shaking his head, he put his hands in a familiar seal. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he said. Surrounding him was up to 1,000 clones. He looked at each clone and watched as they prepared for battle. Naruto got into his fighting stance. "Let's go." The clones charged at him. The Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu watched as Naruto train. Each member had their concerns about him and were just watching out for him just in case. "He's really beating himself up about this," Sayuri said. "Literally. Yeah, just look at him. His movements are sloppy. That clone should have never gotten in that punch." Kagura said. "Why is he so beat up about this?" "If you ask me, he made the right decision," Shin said. "You just can't forget the place that was your home," Genji said. "The place that you were raised in. I understand that, but they banished him," Sansei started but was quickly stopped by Sayuri. "Didn't you forget how good his ears are? You say stuff like that about Konoha and he'll kill you." The 7 were quiet and watched as their Mizukage continued his workout. Jubei turned to Sentaro. "What is your take on this, Sentaro? Out of all of us, you have been the least vocal." Jubei said. "I really have no take on it. I'm just going to wait until tomorrow." He said. "Why tomorrow?" asked Genji. "Because that will be the day that he will make his decision. When he does that, I will be ready." "You think he's actually going to go and save them?" Shin asked. Sentaro stayed quiet and continued to watch Naruto train. The others were very confused. Naruto made another clone disappear. He was breathing quite hard and was beginning to become sluggish. The remaining clones didn't give him the time to rest and attacked again. Naruto dodged and destroyed the first charging clone and then a second one and then a third. The other one ducked in his punch and attacked with a sweep. He jumped over it, only to meet a flying clone that sent him into a tree. He was on his knees and taking breaths. He then began to have visions, things that happened in his past life. There was the time he ran from the Hokage when he took his hat. The time Iruka offered him ramen. The time that he got Jiraiya caught. The time he dodged Tsunade when he gave her a "welcome back" prank, and many more. He saw them smiling at him, telling him how proud of him they were. Then it all turned dark. He saw his old home in flames. He saw those who believed him dead in the streets. He saw him, Orochimaru, laughing as he watched Konoha burn. He stood over Tsunade, who seemed to reaching out to him. He attempted to reach back, but it was cut off as Orochimaru's sword came down and silenced her forever. "No," was Naruto inhuman yelling as he charged his chakra. It was a red chakra that surrounded him. In the back were 5 tails swishing back and forth. With a loud roar he ripped through the clones like paper. Every blow he gave was like a boom in the air. A group of clones decided to attack for the air. Doing a series of hand signs, he called out his jutsu. "Futon. Kyotatsamaki Kaimetsu no Jutsu." He yelled. A giant tornado was formed and it lifted every clone that was in his path. Not only were the clones destroyed but the surrounding area too. The Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan had to abandon their spot and run for their lives. Sentaro and Kagura had seen this technique back in Tsuchi no Kuni. It was the technique that wiped out a whole base. Even the villagers felt the winds as it ripped through town. The jutsu began to die down and the destruction of the technique was done. There were no more clones in the area. Naruto felt his chakra leave him and he began to fall. As he blacked out, he felt of the back of something soft. Sentaro lifted the young Kage and gave him a wry grin. He felt a group of ninjas coming and decided to meet them. He climbed out of the 20-yard hole that Naruto made and walked back to his home. He stood on a small boat that was sailing toward Hai no Kuni. He turned toward the fading Kirigakure no Sato. He knew that he would have a pretty good head start before his clone got destroyed. When he awoke from his sleep, he was alone and had come to his decision. He was dressed in baggy black pants, black shirt with the sleeves cut off, 2 gauntlets and his Kiri headband tied to his head. Under his shirt was a chainmail. He really didn't need too much armor since he was the Shinku Senko. He sighed about this choice. He kept to his word and did not involve Kiri in the fight. He had a lot of ground to cover if he was going to make it to Konoha in time. If he knew their enemies, Barugu would want to take him on as soon as possible, so he would push his army to attack. Once he hit the shore, he could make it to Konohagakure before the attack commence. He was sad by this decision he made. He knew that Kagura would be pissed. Sighing, he turned back to the shore. Naruto saw the shore and couldn't wait. Jumping out of the boat, he ran toward the shore. As he neared the shore, he began to notice something. He came to a screeching halt when he noticed what it was. It was a red, sharp and deadly scythe. It was being held back a very pissed-off woman. "And where do you think you're going, Mizukage?" she asked in a dangerous voice. Naruto gulped when he saw her. She was scarier than the second examiner of the Chunin exam. He took a large gulp and faced her. "Get out the way, Kagura," he said. "Make me," she challenged. The Naruto of old would have charged in, but this was Kagura. One of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu, and she was a Sennin. Naruto narrowed his eyes and began to do hand signs. Kagura smirked and slashed her scythe downward, causing a blade of wind to cut the water in half. Naruto dodged and finished his attack. Suiden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. A huge water dragon appeared from out of the water and went straight for Kagura. Kagura did the same thing with her scythe and cut the water dragon in half. She was surprised to see two Fuma shurikens coming toward her. Spinning her weapon, she blocked the two shurikens and was able to block Naruto's stab with his kunai. She pushed him back and took a swipe at him with her scythe. He was backstepping and Kagura charged at him. Naruto stopped and did some more quick hand seals. Futon. Case Sume no Jutsu, he said, and charged at Kagura. Kagura did some seals of her own and spun her scythe. Hijutsu. Shinku Getsue no Orori. The wind began to pick up. Mini tornadoes rose from out of the sea. They came together and charged at Naruto. Naruto charged at the water tornado, doing a drill move like Kiba's Suga. The two attacks clashed in a bright light and a huge explosion that sent waves toward the shore. As the clash of the two attacks died down, the two combatants stood with their backs to one another. They were silent toward each other until they both spat out some blood. Suddenly another voice filled the air. "That's enough, you two." They turned to see Sentaro. "The fight's not over yet." Kagura whined. Naruto faced the two. They noticed that he had a fire in his eyes that they have not seen in a long time. "I'm going to Konoha. I have people there that are perikus to me. Any of you stand in my way and I will not hesitate to kill you," he said. He faced his two swordsmen and waited for them to attack. Sentaro just smirked. "So does it satisfy you?" he asked Kagura. "I guess he's ready." "Okay, let's get back to the shore," she said. Naruto looked confused. "Wait, you're not here to take me back?" he asked. The two just smirked and Sentaro pointed to the shore. Naruto turned and saw the rest of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Nananan Shu, Rugen, Saito and 5 battalions of Kiri ninjas. Sentaro placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. "You brought the Kiri out of the darkness that it was in. You are our hero and we own you so much. Do not feel that you must do this on your own. We are here for you and will die for you. You are the Yondiami Mizukage, hero of the Kiri," he said. A loud cheer was sounded from the shore as they agreed with everything. Naruto felt tears fall for his eyes, but he quickly wiped them. It was not the time for tears. His perikus people were in danger and he had wasted time fighting. The three hit the shore and two ninja appeared with his Hokage robes and hat. Placing them on, he turned to his army. "I guess that I should start by saying I'm sorry for not trusting you. My problems are our problems. What affects me, affects us all. We are about to enter a war that may bring us hurt, sorrow and death, but as long as we do this in the quest that we have something to protect, we will be strong. We have remained hidden from the ninja world for too long. It is time for our future enemies to see how strong we have become. It is time to show the world that Kirigakure no Sato is back at the top of the food chain." A loud roar was heard. Naruto turned to two of his ninjas. They bowed as he turned to them. "You two escort the elders back and summon another battalion." "Hi," they said. Rugen and Saito walked up to Naruto. Naruto smirked at them. "You knew that I was going to save them?" he asked. "I'm a businessman, Naruto. I can read your eyes," Rugen said. "Besides, it is time for the ninja world to see our power. We will watch over Kirigakure while you're gone," Saito said. Naruto nodded and the two ninjas disappeared with the council elders. Turning back to the soldiers, he looked at them with a dead serious gaze that had everyone at attention. "Shinobi of Kiri, the time is now. Move out," he ordered. "Oi!" They shouted and disappeared. Naruto looked at the direction of Konoha. "Just hang on until I get there, Konoha. I will be there shortly." Naruto disappeared and joined his army. Naruto ran at full speed. Everyone was trailing right behind him. The Kiri shinobi Katana Nanan and Shu were trying to keep pace with him, but they were lacking. Sentaro caught up with Naruto. "We have to stop," he said. "We can't," he stated. "We need to. We can't stop." Naruto shouted. "I'm telling you that we do. Look at your army." Sentaro pointed behind him. Naruto saw that everyone was very tired. Traveling half the day at such a fast pace until dawn was a daunting task he asked of them. He looked at Sentaro and nodded to his request. Sentaro and Naruto stopped and gave the signal to rest. Everyone took a breath of relief and silently thanking Sentaro. Sentaro stood with Naruto as he kept his eyes on the path to Konoha. "Do not worry, my Kage," Sentaro said to comfort him. "We will make it to them. We will save those who are dear to you." "Thanks, Sentaro. I'm glad I made you second in command. Besides, you're a lot better at this than Kagura." Naruto joked. "Hey," was the shout that the two heard. They turned to see a very pissed-off woman who was very close on calling on one of her deadly hijutsus. The two just laughed, which only pissed her off more. "Tell everyone to eat and rest. In 3 hours we move again," Naruto ordered. "Hi," he said and took off. Naruto returned to look at the path that was to Konoha. "I'll be there soon, guys." Tsunade stood her office. The sun was beginning to rise from the east. It would be the beginning of the attack soon. She didn't get as much sleep as she wanted last night. The talk with the Kage had taken longer than she thought. The two talked strategies and positions of each other's armies. As the meeting was coming to a close, he said something that made stop dead in her tracks. Flashback. "When will Uzumaki arrive?" was the monotone voice of the Godem Kage, Sabaku no Gara. "I thought I told you that Kiri would not be coming to our aid," Tsunade answered. "I didn't ask about Kiri. I asked when will Uzumaki arrive? What makes you so sure that he will come?" Tsunade asked in a sad tone. "What makes you think that he won't?" he asked. He made a gesture to his two military advisors and they walked out. Before he left, Gara said one more thing. "I can feel him coming. His power has grown greatly." With that, he left a stunned Tsunade. Present. Maybe it was because the two understood each other better than everyone else. She sighed and reached for a bottle of sake. "You can't be drunk when a big battle is coming," an all-too-familiar voice said. "It's bad luck." Tsunade turned to see Jiraiya standing in her doorway. He was wearing his old battle armor from back in the days. She was still amazed that after all these years he had such a fit body. Jiraiya saw the look and gave a wide grin. "So finally falling for my charm?" he asked. "If you could call it that." She joked but turned her head so that he wouldn't see the small blush on her face. She poured herself a drink and took a gulp. She sighed as she looked at the rising sun. "I wonder if this will be the last sun I get to see rise?" she muttered solemnly. "I don't think so," Jiraiya said lightly. "You weren't here for the Suna auto attack." "Boy, did we ever send Orochimaru packing," he said. "How can you be so calm about this?" she asked facing him. Jiraiya looked at her straight in her eyes when he answered. "I've been in many battles," he said nonchalantly. "So the feeling of one approaching does not bother me as much as you. I was born here and I'll be damned if I let it be destroyed." Tsunade was very envious of her teammate. He just looked at her as if sensing something from her. "Don't sweat it. This time you won't be the support, I will be. You're the Hokage after all. Kami, you're still as lazy as ever," she joked. "And you're still very cute when you blush," Jiraiya said with a lecherous grin. He had to duck out of the way of a chair that was thrown at him. Neji stared up at the ceiling. His wife slept next to him. He stroked her naked back as she slept peacefully. He did not want to leave this warmth that he was in, but he knew that he would, that they both would. He would not be there to watch over her because she was assigned to the East Gate. He was worried about her and wanted to stay like this forever. He sighed deeply and shook her awake. She batted her eyes and stretched her muscles. She looked at her husband's face and knew what he was thinking. She stroked his cheek and gave him a deep kiss. Neji pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. The two broke the kiss and stared at each other. He put his forehead to hers. "It's time to go, isn't it?" she asked. Yes, though, we could stay here. Neji said. Hinata giggled at him. You've been hanging around Kiba for too long. He's beginning to corrupt you. I'm serious. I know, but we have a duty to uphold. I would love nothing more than stay with you, but we have to protect the home in which our children will grow. Neji sighed again and looked at his wife. He smiled at her. I thought I was the one with the wise words? You are. Where do you think I learned it from? The two Hyuga chuckled and got out of bed. Everywhere in Konoha, everyone was getting ready. Iruka was placing on his Junin vest on. He was bit tired and had a good reason to be. His girlfriend wouldn't allow him to rest. He stared at Anko as she came into the room wearing her combat gear. She didn't look like a woman who just woke up from hours of lovemaking. She looked ready and perky in her full combat attire. He growled at her while she smirked at him. Gaara, Kankuro, Tamari and Shikamaru were getting prepared as well. Tamari kept fixing her husband while he kept calling her troublesome. Kankuro made a snide comment while Gaara placed his case cage hat on. Kiba stepped out of the clan house, flanked by Akamaru, Sume Inuzuka and Kuromaru, Hana Inuzuka and Haimaru Sankyodai and the whole Inuzuka clan. Shino was with his team, awaiting instructions. Danzo was giving a speech to his Nate forces. Sakura was placing on her kunai holster on her thigh. Kakashi bowed to the memorial stone and disappeared to join the ranks. Guy and Lee was giving their inspiring the youth speech while Tenten, who was married to the Guy clone, shook her head in embarrassment. The main and branch members of the Hyuga clan filed out of the clan house. Kurenai, in her full Junin attire, stood next to her husband. The two walked out of their home, ready to defend their home. Everywhere and every place, the shinobi of Konoha filed out of their homes in full battle gear, each having their reasons for protecting their home. Those whose families were not yet evacuated cried as they watched their loved ones heading to battle. Children cried and tried to hold on to their parents, but they were taken away. They all had a duty to uphold and were honor-bound to do that duty. Outside of each gates, Konoha stood with their allies, awaiting the coming threat. Orochimaru stood with the leaders of the invasion. He had a gleeful smirk on his face. His last attack was a failure, but this time he would succeed. He remembered the words of his sensei as he was taking his last breath. A new leaf sprouts. The shadows of fire illuminate the village. He said with a chuckle. What does that mean? Barugu asked. It means nothing. It was the words of a dying old man. I've never met someone who hates his home as much as you. Ikazuki commented. They have been at the top for too long. It is time to put an end to it. Orochimaru explained, turning cold. I agree to that. So shall we put an end to Konohagakure no Sato? Barugu asked. Indeed, we shall. Order the attack. Today, the fire that illuminates the village will be put out forever. Orochimaru spoke. The armies began to move out. The Kiri ninjas were on the move again. They took a short rest before and were now up and running. As always, Naruto ran ahead of the pack. The armies finally reached a small hill. Naruto stood on this hill and looked at the horizon. He saw a distant black smoke rising from the general area where Konoha was. So it has begun already. We're not too far now. Just hold on for a little while longer. I'll be there shortly, Naruto thought. He turned and saw Genji run up to him. Mizukage-sama, he said and bowed. What is it? The battalion you asked for has caught up with us. He informed. Do they need rest? No, they are ready to fight. Good. Tell everyone that we are only about 2 hours away. When we are closer, inform everyone to take their soldier pills. We'll need them. Hi, Mizukage-sama. Naruto took off in the direction of Konoha. Genji just watched his leader sprint off. He's certainly in a hurry. Well, we better be too. Genji disappeared to give out Naruto's orders. Chaos was the word of the day. The shinobi of Suna and Konoha awaited their enemy to appear. The silence made the air thick with tension. When is the attack going to begin? Were the thoughts of many. Then it happened. At the east gate, Hinata, Ino, Shino, Iruka, Guy and Sakura felt the ground shake. They looked to see huge boulders come rolling at them. Sakura stepped up and used her strength. Though at odds with each other, Tsunade did show her how she used her super strength. Sakura was the only one who could do it because of her perfect chakra control. She brought her fist down and created a long fissure across the earth. The boulders stopped as they fell into the fissure. It created a wall that guarded them. Hinata used her Bakugan and spotted the enemy. Damn it, they're in a straight formation and they are preparing to do that again. She informed. What is this technique, Sakura? Asked Ino. Doden. Doryu Dango no Jutsu, the pink-haired girl answered. If this keeps up, then those boulders will smash through the east gate. The trio felt another rumbling. Incoming, shouted Hinata. The boulders hit the barrier that was formed. Most of the boulders were stopped but two broke through. Everyone jumped out of the way. The first boulder smashed through the east gate and the second boulder destroyed a sentry post. Sakura stood up and surveyed the damage. What she saw was that some were not so lucky, being outright crushed. The few men in the tower who were lucky enough to survive didn't escape unharmed, most having shattered limbs or bones. Hinata activated her Bakugan again. She saw a combination of Iwa and Kumo ninjas charging toward them. She stood along with Ino and Iruka. They watched as the enemy ninja came flying at them. The battle for the east gate had begun. At the west gate, Choji, Tamari, Kankuro, Lee, Asuma and Tenten stood and awaited the attack. They had heard the explosion from the east. Choji was worried about their wives. Asuma chuckled at their worried faces. You two shouldn't worry. Ino is head of the interrogation squad. She is a top-notch fighter. He assured them. I know that, sensei, but I can't help but worry. Ino can be reckless sometimes, Choji said. Asuma just chuckled but he felt something in the air. His hair began to stand up and his eyes widened in surprise. Everybody down, was his shout. Everyone took cover as orbs of lightning came crashing down upon them. The attack broke open the west gate and killed several shinobi. When the dust began to clear, Asuma was surprised to see many of Kumo ninja dressed in gray ninja armor. Well, this was unexpected, he muttered. Who the hell are these guys? Asked Kankuro. They are Kumo's Ubori ninjas. They are like the Ne forces. That technique was the Raikyu. Asuma explained. Suddenly, many umbrellas shot into the air. They flew overhead. They opened up and thousands of needles rained down on them. Asuma just sighed and used a word that his old student would use. Man, this is so troublesome. At the main gate, the brunt of Konoha's forces stood. They were mostly the Anbu and the Ne. They stood ready to ward off the enemy attack. Sasuke, Neji and Kiba stood within this group as did Kakashi. Their weight was not wasted as they saw their enemy. It was an amazing and terrifying sight. Ninjas from the invading countries were mixed in together, armed to the teeth with their choice weapons. The two armies stood across from each other, neither side moving. The tension was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. The sounds of battle from the other gates did not distract the Konoha Anbu. They were ready to fight for the protection of their home. A flower stood between the armies. The wind was blowing hard, stripping the flower of its petals. When the last petal was gone, the battle begun. Shikamaru stood in the center of Konoha. He set up a tactical command center right in the middle of the village. It gave him a good line of sight of the various battles and made it much faster for messages to get to him. He felt the presence of someone behind him. Report, Shikamaru ordered. The east gate has been destroyed. But the team is holding. The nin gasped out. Two more nins appeared and Shikamaru waited for their report. The battle at the main gate has just started. The west gate needs help. Asuma-san is fighting members of Kumo's Ubori soldiers. Send Konohamaru-san's and Hanabi-san's squads to help. Dispatch Kurenai's squad to the east just in case. Hi, were the two nins' reply and they disappeared. Shikamaru sighed and wondered what was going to happen next. He got his answer in the form of a loud rumble. The rumble turned into a huge explosion as a three-headed snake blew out of the ground. On top of them was Orochimaru and the other cages. They jumped off and raced toward where Tsunade would be. Shikamaru made an order to follow them. But he was cut short when a snake sent him flying. Shaking the cobwebs out his head, he turned to face a huge mouth coming toward him. Ryuusei Bakuryu was the shout he heard as the snakes were blown away by a wave of sand. Shikamaru was swept away along with them. Remembering the next process of the attack, he quickly jumped to safety. Sabuka Taiso. The snake was crushed by Gaara's attack. Glancing towards the hole the snakes had made, he saw numerous sound ninja swarming out. Those cages would have to wait. Shikamaru-san, we have a position to defend. The cage ordered. You could have warned me, you know. Shikamaru complained quietly. Gaara said nothing, focusing more on summoning his sand. Shikamaru muttered something about crazy in-laws and followed him. Orochimaru, Barugu, Ikazuki and Oboro landed on the roof of the Hokage Tower. He had a smile on his face as he stared at his two former comrades. Well, this is almost a reunion. I'm just missing my battle gear, he said. Jiraiya and Tsunade, who was in a blue jumpsuit and a Junin vest, faced Orochimaru. If only Sarutobi-sensei was here, it would be just like old times. Jiraiya said with a small smile. Well, I can arrange that, the Habisanin said with a sneer. Like we would let you use such a technique, Tsunade spat. She's feisty, Barugu said, grinning lecherously. I may keep you alive for some entertainment. I'd rather kiss Jiraiya, she said venomously. You know, that hurts. Jiraiya said, whining like a child. Enough talk. We came here for a reason. Ikazuki said snapped. You're right. I'm sorry, my friends, but business comes first. Today, Konoha will die. Orochimaru said sneering broadly. I won't let that happen. Today, your ambitions die. Tsunade said. Everyone prepared for the battle of the century.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.